everyone. Good evening and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. Tonight, we'll explore some of Europe's offbeat art. My name is Ben Green and I'll be your moderator. And now I would like to introduce our travel guide and European art devotee, Rick Steves. Good evening, Rick.
Hey, Ben, thank you very much for the introduction. And thanks to all of you for tuning in to Monday Night Travel. Today, we have a special show and we're talking about the quirky art of Europe. It was really fun putting this together. And as I mention every week, I'm just so thankful that I have this weekly chance to enthuse about European travel. It's history, it's art, it's culture, it's food, it's vodka, you name it. And we get together. We're like a bunch of traveling friends. And I cut off work early on a normal day, and then I scamper around my house to make sure everything's tidy because I've got thousands of travelers coming over because we're going to have a little travel party. And make yourself at home. I hope you've got your favorite travel partner with you. I hope that you've got something to nibble on and something to drink. We're going to be going all over Europe. The food for the evening is going to be Polish. And I'm going to start right off with a little bit of Polish vodka. And if you look at that, it says bison grass vodka. I can't even begin to pronounce the Polish name of it, but I can say bison grass. And, you know, there's a lot of Polish people all around the world. They've had a tough culture and a lot of people have had to emigrate. And they have beautiful memories of the old land. And when this is the fourth best-selling vodka in the world, this bison grass vodka, and I would believe it's because there's so many Poles, Polish Americans, Polish people all over the world that drink this, and it takes them back home because, yeah, this is the bison flavored the grass, and the grass flavors the vodka, and you drink this. Oh, baby, Nastrave. Yeah. And if you look in here, there is a piece of grass. They actually put a piece of grass in there. And that is the kind of grass that the bison enjoy eating in Poland. We're going to be drinking this tonight, along with pierogi, with caramelized onions, and stuffed cabbage leaves, and kielbasa. And I'm going to tell you all about this food as we go. I'm going to be munching it all along. And of course, when you're in Poland, you need some borscht, similar word as the Russian word. And that's your beet soup with mushroom dumplings and lots of other good stuff in it. And we're just gonna have a lot of fun. First of all, it's Memorial Day. And I would like to take a moment to say Nastrave, a good heartfelt toast to the courageous, heroic people that have served so nobly over the generations to make this country safe and free. Here's to people who defend our country. Here's to people yesterday and today that defend our precious democracy. Nastrave. Now, I'm gonna take you on a little trip, and I'm gonna take you all around Europe rather than go through the whole thing like I do every week. I'm going to take you there's our website here. And we're going to go right to Classroom Europe. And Classroom Europe is that site we've designed for school teachers and homeschooling parents and so on. And I've already made the list for today. It's 9 sections, and I've archived it in my own personal collection of playlists. And you can all do this. It's free, it's fun, it's designed for teachers, but we're all teachers when we're traveling, and we're all students. And here's what we got: quirky art. Just made this today. And if we looked in on quirky art, we have 9 videos. It's about 25 minutes. And you can see here on the right, we're going to go to Lausanne for the Gallery of Art by the Insane. We're going to go to Croatia for naive art. That's, you know, idiot savant art from peasants who have never had any art lessons. We're going to go to Chartres Cathedral and listen to Malcolm Miller, one of my most inspirational art teachers. We're going to go to Orvieto and check out its cathedral and this amazing well, which is just a work of engineering art. Yeah, you can't hardly imagine. We're going to go up into the mountains of Bulgaria to the Rila Monastery. We're going to dive into the belle-époque mansions of Paris. We're going to visit the crazy castle of Mad King Ludwig, wallpapered by art inspired by his artistic buddies. And we're going to see Salvador Dalí's house in Catalunya. And we're going to finish with one of my favorite parks anywhere near, filled with art, the Frogner Park, filled by work by Gustav Vigeland. I believe we've visited Vigeland's park on another Monday night episode, but I just thought that'd be a fun way to finish our celebration. So we're going to do all of that. And by the way, when I take you to the homepage at ricksteves.com, I do want to remind you, this is where you find everything that we're doing, our TV shows, our radio shows, our shopping center, and the big news, and our guides marketplace where we connect. You know, if you go to the guides marketplace this year, we're not able to do tours and our guides are in Europe looking for work. We got 100 guides in Europe nearly. And we've got the market picks of the week. We must have 50 or 60 or 80 guides contributing to this hub of guide activity, and we curate it. This week, we've got Liz and Helen taking you on a tour of the fine wine and delectable cheese of Scotland. That's free. We've got the green lanes of British countryside with my very first guide, Roy Nichols. Him and I were doing tours in minibuses way, way back in the last century. That's a free experience with Roy. We've got the original European Idol. This is the wonderful sort of music festival, the Eurovision Song Fest and Veronique Savoy is going to take us there. Art of Portuguese Tiles with Raphael, and Madrid and the Man of La Mancha with Chris and Amanda. Lots going on, and you can check that all out in our website in the Guides Marketplace. The big news this week, and I'll mention it later, is our tours. You know, we had to cancel all of our tours last year. In 2019, we took 30,000 people on our tours. Last year, we took about zip. We had to send back 24,000 deposits. Well, in the last 4 days, 18,000 people have signed up on our tours, and we are basically getting full for 2022. We're not doing any tours in 2021, but starting in February, we're doing tours. And if you want to check it out, I want to remind you, we've been overwhelmed by people, so thankful for the support of our loyal travelers. And these are all the tours. You can go into the tour department and check it out. And if you do, I'll just pick one of these at random. I don't know, we can check out, let's go to Switzerland and we'll see what's going on in our 12-day Switzerland tour. And if you look at that, you can see here what's going on for our 2022 tours in Switzerland. Join the wait list, join the wait. They're all sold out. So it's, we're a small tour company and people love our tours, and there's a lot of them are sold out already. But I do want to remind you, we've held back about 20% of our tours, and it's worth getting on the wait list. There are still a lot of tours open, but when you look at a lot of this is our big, the big kahuna, the 21 days in Europe. And if I'm looking at that tour for 2022, it's basically sold out also. But we've got about 20 or 25% more tours that we're going to add once we sort through all the demand. But we will never compromise the quality of our tours to meet the demand. We are a small boutique tour company, and we just love having small groups and great guides and an intimate experiential approach to Europe. And we're thankful for your support. If you're signing up on a tour, we're overwhelmed right now. You can imagine we have 16 or 18,000 people signing up in 4 days. Get your name on the list. Hang tight, we'll get back to you and we shall sort it out. Right now, we're going to go to Lausanne. And you know, when you go to Switzerland, you think of mountains, but there's great cities. And one of those is Lausanne on Lake Geneva. And that's a city famous for the Olympics Museum, but it's also got a museum filled with work done by people who were locked up because they were considered criminally insane. We're going to go there, and then we're going to go to Croatia to see some more art that is just very thought-provoking. Who are the crazy people? Those who make the art or those who look at it? Let's check this out right now. We're in the beautiful south of Switzerland on Lake Geneva, Lac Léman, in the town of Lausanne.
Lausanne perches elegantly overlooking Lake Geneva. The city is made of 2 charming zones, the idyllic waterfront and the tangled historic Old Town. Locals nickname their town the San Francisco of Switzerland for all its hills. There's no way to see it without lots of climbing. Lausanne's pedestrianized Rue de Bourg has the finest shops. By the way, be careful with the pronunciation. Many confuse Lausanne with Lucerne. Lausanne's collection of fringe art, or art brut, fills one of Europe's most thought-provoking art galleries. It presents works by self-taught creators who, for various reasons, escaped cultural conditioning and social conformity. The people who made this art were completely untrained, as free-spirited as artists can be. These pieces were created by amateur artists, many who were labeled and even locked up by society as insane, or even criminally insane. Thumbnail biographies of these outsiders personalized their work. In the 1940s, the artist Jean Dubuffet began collecting art produced by people he called free from artistic culture and free from fashion tendencies. Dubuffet said, "The art does not lie in beds ready-made for it. It runs away when its name is called. It wants to be incognito. Its best moments are when it forgets what it's called."
Wow. Its best moments are when it forgets what it's called. The art doesn't lie in bed, ready-made for it. Oh my goodness. There's, this is art, as I said, that's free from artistic culture, free from fashion tendencies. And you can find that in sort of specialty, quirky museums around Europe. Now we're going to go to Croatia, and we're going to see a museum in Croatia that's filled with work called naive art. It's just these guys they found out in the countryside, farmers. And, in Switzerland and Germany, farmers didn't have much to do in the winter. So what do? They carved fine little cuckoo clocks, and you get all these cuckoo clocks because farmers are bored in the winter. What do they do in Croatia? They find a pane of glass, and then they paint on it, and they share their curious peasant's insight to life from a countryside of Croatia. Check this out.
Nearby is the Croatian Museum of Naive Art. This charming collection features lyrical landscapes and village scenes painted in the mid-20th century by self-taught peasant artists. While some are on canvas, most are painted on glass, a cheap and readily available material that was easier to work on. Naive art is created by untrained artists isolated from the artistic mainstream. They painted in a figurative way, while the rest of the artistic world embraced increasingly an abstract style. Generalic, shown here in the self-portrait, was the father of the Croatian naive art movement. In 1953, he took his art to a show in Paris as a relative unknown. He was a huge hit, sold everything, and came home rich and famous. These Croatian naive artists were outsiders, sought out by art world insiders to validate their notion that artistic ability was more than a learned skill. It was an inborn talent. In places such as rural Croatia, medieval lifestyles survived well into the 20th century. You see a lot of winter scenes because these artists were farmers first, busy tending their fields through the growing season. They painted their village world, isolated from the modern world. In a complex age, many urbanites found this art refreshing for its brute simplicity.
We're going to go to cathedrals in just a moment, but right now I'm going to go to another glass of this this bison grass vodka. I hope you're having a good time. This is as I mentioned, it's got this bison grass, and that's very nostalgic for Poles far away, just like something Norwegian would be for me, as I love my homeland and so on. And I love this idea that when people emigrate, they have these romantic memories of their homeland. Chopin the great Polish composer, spent most of his life in Paris, but he still could always hear what they called the wind through the willows. And when you play his music, you got to remember Chopin was thinking about the wind in the willows. And he was probably drinking some of this bison grass vodka. I just want to introduce to you a little more about my food, because this food is really good. It's remember, with Monday Night Travel, we're remembering small restaurants all over the United States, just like we're remembering small restaurants in Europe. We're just hoping that they will survive the difficult times of this pandemic until things kick back into gear. And we like to support our local restaurants. We like to support our one-offs rather than the chain restaurants when possible. We love this idea of mom and pop places, entrepreneurial ventures, passions in people's work. There's a little restaurant, a Polish restaurant in Seattle, Sebi's Bistro. And Sebi's Bistro is a popular place. The head chef is Kamila, and it comes right back from Southeast Poland, and their crew brings it right here to Seattle. It's a beloved restaurant in Seattle. I bet you've got a restaurant like Sebi's Bistro in your town, and there you could get the basic Polish platter. And let me just explain to you I'm just going to put this on a little platter so you can enjoy it. We've got our stuffed cabbage leaves. That's this one back here. And the stuffed cabbage rolls. The cabbage rolls are cooked cabbage leaves, and they're wrapping whatever they want to put in there, pork, onion, garlic, vegetables, and then put a marinara sauce on top of that. Of course, kielbasa is the Polish sausage, and that's just a Polish sausage. It's usually pork and garlic and grilled with some nice mustard. And then we've got the pierogi, and the pierogi is a dumpling, and I got some caramelized onions on it. It's boiled and then it's fried. So I wanted to show you this in its entirety because it's going to be gone by the time this video is over. But there you go with that. And then we've got, as I mentioned, our borscht. And when I think about all of these dishes that I'm sharing with you, this is borscht with mushroom dumplings, and it's just a beet soup. You got cabbage, you got onions, you got beets. This is peasant food. This is food for a country that doesn't have a lot of wealth, and it is refined and part of the culture and beloved. So we're celebrating Polish cuisine, and we're celebrating art, even art from unschooled people. And we've got, we're going to go to France for Chartres. We're going to go to Orvieto in Italy for a great cathedral. And we are going to go to the Rila Monastery in the mountains of Bulgaria. I love this Chartres Cathedral in part because there's a guy named Malcolm Miller there. And Malcolm Miller is the ultimate scholar that just found his niche and has been teaching people forever the wonders of this Gothic cathedral. We're going to take a tour by him, and he's going to read a window to us here 2 hours south of Paris in Chartres. If the cathedral seems big for its town, that's because it was huge on the pilgrimage trail. People came from all over to see its precious relic, the veil or gown it's believed Mary wore when she gave birth to Jesus. In fact, when the earlier cathedral burned down, that veil was found miraculously preserved. Conveniently, this was great for fundraising, as Christians from far and wide gave generously so Chartres could rebuild its cathedral grander than ever.
The nave is vast, over 400 feet long, and the widest in France, and the Gothic structure allowed for plenty of windows. Chartres contains the world's largest surviving collection of medieval stained glass, with over 150 early 13th century windows. The light pouring through these windows was mystical and encouraged meditation and prayer. Stained glass was used to teach Bible stories to the illiterate medieval masses, and it gave worshippers images to focus on as they prayed. The English scholar Malcolm Miller has dedicated most of his life to studying this cathedral and sharing its wonders with visitors. Most of what I know about this church, I learned from Malcolm.
Chartres Cathedral has the world's largest collection of medieval windows. Over 150 original windows of the 12th and 13th centuries. The oldest ones, if you turn around, are behind you, beneath the rose window. I want to start with those. Most of the windows are read bottom upwards. The idea is from earth to heaven. Like the architecture, I think goes up, it's uplifting. They're renowned especially for the quality of the blue. It's a luminous blue made from cobalt. This time we just look at a few scenes. Second up on the left, the Last Supper. On the right, Jesus is washing his disciples' feet. Third on the left, betrayed, the kiss of Judas. Next, the Roman law, whipping, flagellation. Crucified him fourth on the left. And the cross is green, colour symbolism, because of the belief that the cross was made from the tree of life that grew in the Garden of Eden, and living wood is green. That's use of colour symbolism. So that left window ends with the living Christ resurrected. And the importance of Chartres for us in the 21st century is that it's come down to us, it's amazing, nearly intact. We can still read Chartres Cathedral like a book.
Wow, we can still read Chartres Cathedral like a book. And you saw Malcolm Miller there. He is the most dear scholar. And for ever since I was a kid, 2 times a day, he's been giving tours. And he's got a younger assistant now that's going to succeed him as he retires. But I was just so thankful to have Malcolm on our show and to be able to share him now. And once in your life, you need a scholar to read a stained glass window to you, because each window is like a sermon. Okay, now we're going to go to Orvieto. And Orvieto is famous for its cathedral and its well. It's on a hilltop. It's fortified. It's a classic fortified hill town about an hour or so north of Rome. The cathedral is cool because, and I'll explain this, but I'll tell you right now so you be sure to get it. It's designed so it's not a square. It gets narrower towards the altar. So when you stand in the back, the illusion is that it's longer than it really is. It's got beautiful, thinly sliced alabaster that it's translucent for its windows. And it's got this incredible chapel frescoed by a guy named Luca Signorelli, who inspired Michelangelo. And this apocalypse takes us vividly back 500 years, and it weaves in the gossip and the scandals of the day. This is an example, when you look at this next little bit, about the importance of understanding what a church has to offer, and you've got to be aggressive and reach out and get that information so you will fully enjoy it. Because most people that go to the Chartres Cathedral or the Orvieto Cathedral, they don't get it. They just don't get it because they don't take advantage of Malcolm Miller or some little guidebook to give them all of those kind of details. Okay, here we go. The hill town of Orvieto. Look at that classic hill town. Why wouldn't the Pope use that for his refuge when he was under attack at the Vatican?
Orvieto, Umbria's grand hill town, sits majestically, high above the valley floor on a big chunk of tufa, a soft and easy-to-cut volcanic stone. A handy funicular shuttles visitors from Orvieto's train station and big free park and ride lot on the valley floor up to the town.
More and more European towns are dealing with their traffic and parking congestion by making life frustrating and expensive for anyone who insists on driving into the old center. Public transit is designed to reward those who park outside of town.
From the top, a bus connects with the funicular and drops people right at the cathedral square. Pedestrian-friendly lanes make exploring the town a joy. Inviting shops show off Orvieto's famous and colorful ceramics. The cathedral, or Duomo.
By the way, look at this design. It's a square, kind of simple building with a real fanciful facade slapped on the front, like a lot of facades in Wild West towns and so on. I mean, old architecture in the United States is that way too. Stand in the front, it looks incredible. Look behind that facade, and you find just a blocky building.
As they say in Italian, gets my vote for Italy's liveliest facade. This gleaming mass of mosaics and sculpture is a circa 1330 class in world history, back when no one dared question intelligent design. Things start with creation. Eve is tempted by Satan disguised as a snake, and so on right up to Judgment Day. Inside, the striped nave appears longer than it is. That's because the architect designed the nave wider at the back and narrower at the altar. Windows of thin sliced alabaster bathe the interior in a soft light. Adjacent the altar, the Chapel of St. Brizio is Orvieto's one must-see artistic site. It features Luca Signorelli's frescoes of the Apocalypse. The vivid scenes depict events at the end of the world, but they also reflect the turbulent political and religious atmosphere of Italy in the late 1400s.
The nearby city of Florence had become a theocracy run by the austere and charismatic monk Savonarola. His ultra-conservative teachings polarized Christians, bringing tension to the church.
In The Sermon of the Antichrist, a crowd gathers around a man preaching from a pedestal. It's the Antichrist, representing Savonarola, who comes posing as Jesus to mislead the faithful. This befuddled Antichrist forgets his lines mid-speech, but the devil is on hand to whisper what to say next. His words sow wickedness throughout the world, from a corrupt woman taking money, to evil figures running rampant, to mass executions. Then, on Judgment Day, trumpeting angels blow a wake-up call, and skeletons of the dead climb dreamily out of the earth to be clothed in new bodies. Across the chapel, the saved gather happily in heaven, enjoying a holy string quartet. Facing them, the damned experience the horrible mosh pit of hell. Devils torment sinners in graphic detail, while winged demons control the airspace overhead. A demon turns to tell his frightened passenger exactly what he's got planned for her.
Signorelli's ability to tell stories through human actions and gestures rather than symbols inspired his younger contemporary Michelangelo, who meticulously studied Signorelli's work.
Okay, so this town is on a hill. It's a hill town. Hill towns are, people go to the trouble of hiking to the top of the town because they need defensive, they need to be defended. They need to have an easily fortified perch like this. This was so good, as I'll mention in a moment, the Pope used it. When you're on a hill town, you can get starved out or thirstied out by a siege. And in the Middle Ages, a lot of times the defense was better than the offense. So they would just hang out and wait for the city to give up and run out of food or water. You had to have a good well. And here's right where the train leaves, the funicular leaves you off, and most people hop onto the shuttle bus and go up to the center of town. But right next to the top of the funicular, you got this amazing sight. It's a well. And this well was the water would be the Achilles heel of this beautiful fortified town. So boy, they put a lot of energy into this well. And the well is a work of art in itself. Let's check it out.
Vieto, with its natural hilltop fortification, was the Pope's place of refuge in the 1500s. He wanted to be sure he had water during a time of siege, so he built an extravagant well. St. Patrick's Well, 175 feet deep, is designed with a double helix pattern.
Can you imagine? My crew hiked all the way down there to get that shot. That's a long hike. They didn't have elevators back then, I can promise you that. It's a work of art, and it's right there. And I don't think 1 in 10 tourists even knows it exists. When you're going to a great town, do your studying so you know about things like St. Patrick's Well.
The 2 spiral stairways allow an efficient one-way traffic flow. Intriguing now, but critical then. Imagine if donkeys and people balancing jugs of water had to go up and down the same stairway.
Digging this was a huge project. Even today, when faced with a difficult task, Italians say it's like digging St. Patrick's Well.
Okay, this next stop is in Bulgaria. By the way, it's so much fun to be able to share this with you. I hope you're enjoying Monday Night Travel. I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying my bison grass vodka. Nastrave again. We're thinking about medieval terms and popes hiding out on hilltops and so on. All over Europe, you got little enclaves of culture, little countries that almost didn't get their country, and they've got their cultural treasures, their most careful, sacred religious objects and so on, and they put them in the mountain. When you're in Catalunya, Barcelona, go up to Montserrat. When you're in Bulgaria, get into the Rhodope Mountains and go to Rila. We're going to go now into the mountains of Bulgaria to see a beautiful holy place for the Bulgarian people, the Rila Monastery, filled with beautiful art.
We're driving deep into the mountains south of Sofia. The peaceful beech forests seem a world away from the big city. Finally, we reach Rila Monastery, fortress on the outside, spiritual sanctuary inside. Within its walls, you feel something special, both sacred and timeless.
Founded in the 10th century, Rila Monastery was a stronghold for Bulgarian faith, language, and culture during nearly 500 years of Ottoman rule. And today, it remains the country's revered national treasure.
This beautiful place has been a holy site and refuge for over 1,000 years. The monastery is still home to a handful of monks who...
This is reminding me, I was just, in so many cases, I've been, you know, how excited it must be to be there with your film crew and you're showing off this amazing cultural treasure. And it's monks that are keeping it alive. But they're so camera shy. They don't want to be filmed. And I was just at a monastery in Palestine, a most incredible monastery. And the monks let us, we got to record their singing, their beautiful singing, but we couldn't record their faces as they sang. And here, these monks wouldn't let us get near them with their camera. We caught one of them walking across the aisle there. he didn't know how powerful our zoom lens was. That's from a long way away. But I'm thankful there are still monks keeping these little obscure mountain fortresses of culture alive. It's a shame we couldn't share with you the mass that was up here. It was just so beautiful, but it's worth checking out when you go to Bulgaria. Rila, R-I-L-A. By the way, all the details from everything I'm talking about today, I just wanted to list all the names. They're in the chat section there where you can get all the links and so on. I'm going to be mentioning a lot of names over the next few minutes and of places. And I wanted to be sure you had those so that you can, when you keep on traveling, you can know where to travel.
Host both tourists and pilgrims. This bell tower, the oldest surviving part of the monastery, served as a final refuge in case of attack. The iconic church is surrounded by a graceful arcade. Under the arcade, vivid 19th century frescoes depict Bible stories, peopled by angels and devils, saints and sinners. Here's St. John of Rila, who, seeking a hermetic way of life, founded this remote monastery in the year 927. These scenes show the 40 days of trials your soul goes through after death. A guardian angel accompanies the soul, represented by a small child, through a gauntlet of temptations.
This place. Okay, now I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine, Stefan Bodajev, and he is our Bulgarian guide, and his tours are booking up right now as we speak. And Stefan is an example of how we can't do our TV shows without the support of our guides. I'm so thankful for the expertise and the passion of our guides. And when we come to town with our film crew, our Rick Steves tour guides are happy to spend a couple of days with us helping out. Here you're going to see the importance of a guide to give an extra voice and a credible voice to what we're trying to teach. And imagine if you're the TV producer, Simon. You got two people. You got me and the local guide. We've each got our wireless mics on, and we have a conversation where we're going to walk around a corner just surrounded by beautiful art. And I want Stefan to say it, but I know the points we have to make. Stefan knows how to say it just perfectly. And then while we're talking, we cut away to beautiful art or beautiful images that support what we're talking about. So here is just a little bit. And I'm so thankful for the work that our cameraman and our producer and our editor, Carl or Peter, Simon, and Steve Camarano do when we put this together. And this is a great example of the value of a local guide.
Feels so venerable. Did you come here as a child?
Yes, actually many times with my family. It was a favorite destination.
So why is Rila so important to the Bulgarian people?
Because actually our most favorite, most beloved saint, Saint Ivan Rilsky, was buried nearby.
Oh, okay, so this is like you could say the Jerusalem for the Bulgarian people.
Absolutely. The heart of every single Bulgarian belongs to this place, belongs to this monastery here.
You come here and celebrate Bulgaria.
We celebrate Bulgaria and the Bulgarian spirit.
Wow. A glimpse. Stefan, I'm so thankful for. I do want to thank everybody right now on our team. We've got Gabe, we've got Ben, we've got Julianne, and Lisa Friend is just joining us and today, so she'll be on our team as we are committed to bringing you a great little hour of travel fun every Monday evening. I want to remind you, all of these clips are from entire half-hour shows. You can watch any of them without me pausing and talking all the time, just by going to that website, ricksteves.com, go into the TV section and look up, in that last case, Bulgaria, where you can say Nastrave, just like you can say in Russia and Poland. If you want to remember that, nice driving. Nastrave. Nastrave. And I want to remind you also, we're doing Q&A after each video. So if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A section there, and we will have a chance to address that. Ben will collect your questions, and I'd love to answer your questions after we're done with the video. Now we're going to Paris. This is the Belle-Époque, the late 1800s. And we're going to go to the home of some people who really made the art and high culture scene there, the Jacques Marthe-André Mansion. And first of all, we're going to go to the opera, where the André family would go a lot. And the opera, you're going to see the lobby and the staircase is as big as the theater itself, because part of the show was just going there and making the scene. That's the fun of the Belle-Époque in Paris. Let's go right now, 150 years ago, to Paris.
The decadence of Paris's beautiful age, or Belle Époque, is enjoyed along the Champs-Élysées. Paris's Old Opera House, the grand palace of this Gilded Age, was finished in 1875. The real show was before and after, when the elite of Paris, out to see and be seen, strutted their elegant stuff in the extravagant lobbies. Think of the grand marble stairway as a theater itself, filled with Paris's beautiful people. The actual theater is a palace of plush and ornate seating. Above it all, a delightful ceiling, painted by Marc Chagall in the 1960s, frolics around an 8-ton chandelier. Nearby, the Jacquemart-André Museum fills a 19th century mansion offering the public a rare aristocratic open house. Edvard André and his wife, Nelly Jacquemart, spent their lives and fortune designing, building, and decorating this incredible mansion. I'm enjoying a tour by one of the museum's fine guides, Chiara.
Because, you know, they had no children, they had a lot of money, and they used to travel a lot, and then they bring many souvenirs.
So these were souvenirs from
exactly, for example.
What is this?
That's the music room.
You can almost imagine the clatter of jewelry mixing with the chamber music as Edvard and Nelly threw a party.
This is the Italian.
Exactly, because they travel in Italy.
Don't you just love Chiara's accent and her confidence with the art, showing off this beautiful mansion? And I'm just so thankful to have somebody like Chiara to walk through the palace with. And and our editor, Steve, has such a musical touch, as you can hear with the music that he brings in. And sometimes I like to work with the guide to give a rhythm. And what you're going to hear now is her beautiful accent and this beautiful rhythm. And she goes, Bellini, Botticelli, Mantegna, Caravaggio.
They love Italian art, and they brought paintings of Bellini, Botticelli, Mantegna, Carpaccio.
And Tiepolo, whose fresco graces the mansion's lobby.
And this is the bedroom.
Okay, so the Monsieur and Madame lived here.
Yes, but this was the room of Madame, chambre of Madame.
Oh, they had 2 different bedrooms.
Exactly. That's Nelly Jacquemart.
And this was Edvard's bedroom, complete with a deluxe bathroom. For more of the decadence of that age, check out the ritzy shops. It's ritzy in the true sense, since they cluster around the original Ritz Hotel. Enjoy the luxury of this neighborhood by window shopping, or as the French say, faire du lèche vitrine.
That's window licking. Faire du lèche vitrine. Ah, I love window licking in Paris. So I just want to stress, I was thinking about this, I was preparing for tonight, how many great personalities left as their heritage their mansion filled with great art and wonderful taste for their age that we can tour today, 100 years later or whatever. I was just thinking, we got the Jacquemart-André house that we just saw there in Paris, the Wellington house for the Duke of Wellington in London, incredible. There's a place called the Willett-Hoythuizen mansion in Amsterdam, right on the great canal of Amsterdam. Of course, the Gaudí mansions like Casa Mia in Barcelona. In Rome, there's a place called the Palazzo Doria Pamphili, where the nobleman, the aristocratic nobleman who for generation his family has run and owned that place, he's made an audio tour that comes with the admission. So he will walk you through his house. My favorite house in this regard would be the home of Salvador Dalí. And we're going there right now. Dalí was the most incredible promoter, of course, Surrealist, just such a bizarre character. And there are 2 great sites north of Barcelona that relate to Salvador Dalí. His home, Cadaqués, and then his mausoleum, where he's buried, which is filled with his art. And that's in a town called Figueres. We're going to go see both of those right now.
For a radically different slice of Catalunya, we're heading north up the Costa Brava. The town of Figueres has the Salvador Dalí Museum, the essential Dalí site. Ever the entertainer and promoter, Dalí personally designed, decorated, and painted it to showcase his life's work. He was buried right here in the floor of this room in 1989, and the museum serves as a mausoleum to the artist's creative spirit. When Salvador Dalí was asked, "Are you on drugs?" he replied, "I am the drug. Take me." Dalí produced some of the most thought-provoking and trailblazing art of the 20th century. His surrealistic imagery continues to disturb and intrigue to this day. The best known of the Surrealists, Dalí created photorealistic images set in bizarre dreamscapes. His life changed forever in 1929 when he met an older Russian woman named Gala.
So this is Gala, and if you've been to Bulgaria, you know that she is half exposed. One breast is showing, and it's a beautiful painting. Gala painting his muse. But I have to always be thinking this is America, and we can't look at nudity in art without getting in trouble. So we have to censor ourselves, or people won't air our show. So here we're just seeing the top half of that painting. So this show can air in Missouri and Arkansas and, countries, states that really are a little bit uptight about this sort of thing.
She became his wife, muse, model, manager, and emotional compass. An audience of golden statues looks down on the museum. Above Dalí's personal 1941 Cadillac hangs the boat enjoyed by Dalí and his soulmate, Gala.
And I'll let you know that those teardrops there are actually condoms. So we couldn't say that in the show because that would raise eyebrows in markets that air our show after bedtime because they can't expose people to modern art.
When she died, he was devastated. Below the boat drip blue tears. Squint at the big digital Abraham Lincoln, and he comes into focus. Look closer, and you see Abe's facial cheeks are Gala's other cheeks.
Ooh, we got away with something there.
The homage to Mae Westerham is a tribute to the sultry seductress. Dalí loved her attitude. She was to conventional morality what he was to conventional art.
Facial features are furniture, arranged so that from the intended vantage point, everything comes together. Mae West. The ceiling of the lounge is a highlight. It shows Gala and Dalí as they reach for the heavens. Dalí's drawers are wide open and empty, indicating he gave everything to his art. Dalí enjoyed his most creative years nearby in the fishing village of Cathedral, which has long been a haven for intellectuals and artists alike. Its craggy coastline, sun-drenched colors, and laid-back lifestyle inspired artists from Matisse and Duchamp to Picasso. For today's tourists, mellow Cathedral offers a peaceful beach town escape near Barcelona.
And by the way, last time I was updating my book, I was actually working with Steve Smith, our co-author for the France book, in the south of France. And by the way, Steve will be my guest in 2 weeks from tonight as we do France together. But Steve and I were doing Coyer. And Coyer is a beautiful town. And it's kind of like the sister town of Cadaqués, which we're seeing here. It's in the over the Pyrenees in France. But we drove this wonderful rocky road along the coast from Coyer in France to Cadaqués in Catalunya, and then swung back into France. It made a lot of sense. It was a beautiful trip. Also, I want to remind you, if you're planning, it is possible but grueling to do Figueres and Cadaqués in one day from Barcelona. But Cadaqués is such a cool town, I would spend the night. It's really, really great. I want to remind you, we're enjoying our Polish food here. This is my Polish vodka, and I'm just drinking it neat here. It's refrigerated, and it's better not to put ice cubes in it because that would dilute it. A lot of people put black currant in it. That's called a black bison, a black currant juice. Also in Poland, they put apple juice in it, and they call that an apple cake. And in the United States, they call this vodka with apple juice a Polish kiss, but I like it straight.
In the 1920s, Salvador Dalí and Gala moved in, bringing international fame to this sleepy Catalan port. Casa Dalí shows how a home can reflect the creative spirit of an artistic genius and his muse. His studio was equipped with an innovative easel. It cranked up and down to allow the artist to paint while seated, as he did 8 hours a day. the bohemian yet divine living room comes complete with a mirror to reflect the sunrise onto their bed each morning. Like Dalí's art, his home defies convention. And like the artist himself, it's playful and provocative.
And a nice view. So his bedroom is the first place in Spain to see the sunrise. I mean, literally, that's an amazing thing on that far eastern tip of Spain, of course, in Catalunya. I want to remind you, Dalí's home is a great place to see, but it is only by reservation, and they limit it to about 8 people every 15 or 20 minutes, and your admission ticket comes with a guided tour. So it's a beautiful thing, but you got to plan in advance. As I was looking at Dalí's home, I was thinking it's so nice to see the home of an artist that shows that artist's spirit. And over the years, I've had the chance, and as I'm researching my guidebooks and preparing for our tours, to visit these homes and decide which one should go in the guidebooks, which one should go on the tour itineraries, and which one you should spend your precious vacation time visiting. In Madrid, there's one that almost nobody goes to, Surrealist. And Surrealist is a great artist. I didn't even know about him. And I went to the museum and it was wonderful. In Paris, you can go to Renoir's home and studio up in Montmartre. It's in the Musée du Montmartre. In Antwerp, in Belgium, you've got the Rubens home, which is great. In Nuremberg in southern Germany, the home of Albrecht Dürer. In Amsterdam, of course, Rembrandt's house is amazing with all of his etchings. And when you want to go out to see Claude Monet, the father of Impressionism, you go outside of Paris to Giverny and you see the garden he planted so he could just walk around and catch all that Impressionism and put it on canvas, all those beautiful water lilies at his home in Giverny. His old studio is now the gift shop. But I think Dalí's home really shows the spirit of that artistic genius. Up next, we're going to go to southern Germany to the home, it's kind of a castle home, of Ludwig II of Bavaria, commonly known among tourists as Mad King Ludwig. His best buddies were artists and musicians from the Romantic age, and they inspired the way he decorated his home. It's just wallpapered in Wagnerian opera-inspired art. Let's go right now to Mad King Ludwig's castle Neuschwanstein and think of it in terms of quirky art.
From Munich, an hour's drive takes us deep into southern Bavaria. It's a timeless land of manicured fields, painted buildings, content cows, and characteristic onion-domed churches. This is a playground for people enjoying the good life at the foothills of the Alps. And it's a land of fairy tale castles, and the most spectacular, the castles of King Ludwig II of Bavaria, aka Mad King Ludwig. He grew up here in the Hohenschwangau Castle. Ludwig then built his dream castle, Neuschwanstein, a 15-minute hike away. The castles are hugely popular, and they're tourable only by appointment with a guided tour. Tickets are sold at the kiosk in the valley floor. To avoid long lines, arrive early, or better yet, call in advance for a tour reservation. Hohenschwangau Castle, Ludwig's boyhood home, looks much like it did in 1836. It's the more lived-in and historic of the two castles, giving a better glimpse at Ludwig's life. This is young King Ludwig's bedroom. And this was his reading chair. The banquet hall is slathered in epic German myths. Germany became a single united country only in 1871. As if to bolster its legitimacy, this young nation dug deep into its murky medieval past. These heroes and legends inspired young King Ludwig to build his fanciful castles, Richard Wagner to compose his ultra-romantic operas, and Germans to believe their nation was deeply rooted in history.
Okay, consider for a moment if you got to have your own travel show and how much fun it is to take a place you know and love, a place you've bought groups to for 25 years, and you realize what people need to know, what they find interesting, what they find boring, what they don't need to know. You've got just a little bit of time because you're making a television show, and Americans want it snappy. So you got to compress it into an educational but compelling little bit. So now we're taking our crew through this castle. You can talk about it all day long. You got to choose what you want to cover in the show. And then you think, what did the tours that I took here as a tour guide last year enjoy? And you let your TV camera and your producers shoot all of that, sort it out, edit it into beautiful TV, bring it home. And then as a tour guide, you got millions of people watching it and enjoying it all across the United States of America. That's why I love my work so much. Follow me now through Ludwig's castle and think about writing and then filming a little bit like this. Choosing what information can people fit into their busy little brains.
Politically, the frustrating reality of young King Ludwig was to rule either as a pawn of Prussia or a pawn of Austria, the two dominant Germanic countries. Rather than deal with the politics of Munich, romantic Ludwig escaped here to the peace and comfort of Hohenschwangau. Ludwig ruled Bavaria for 23 years until his death in 1886. His best friends were romantic artists, like the great composer Wagner, who Ludwig idolized. Neuschwanstein Castle is just up the hill. Imagine King Ludwig as a boy climbing these hills, dreaming up this ultimate fairy tale castle. It looks medieval, but it's only about as old as the Eiffel Tower. Built in the late 1800s, it's a textbook example of the Romantic style, popular at the time. The castle's interior is decorated with misty medieval themes, brave knights, fair maidens, and scenes from Wagnerian operas. Ludwig personified this romantic age. Longing for the natural beauty and emotion of an earlier time, he built his medieval fantasy on the hilltop not for defensive reasons, but because he liked the view. King Ludwig intended to sit on a golden ivory throne in the company of 6 historic kings who were made saints. The religious Ludwig was fascinated by things Byzantine. This room is based on the plan of a Byzantine church. And the 1-ton chandelier is the shape of a Byzantine crown. Just a few months after he moved into Neuschwanstein, Ludwig, who was already planning to build an even more extravagant castle, was declared mentally unfit to rule. 2 days later, he was found dead in a lake. People still debate, was it murder or suicide? But nobody complains any longer about the extravagant cost of his fanciful castles. In fact, within 6 weeks of his funeral, tourists were already paying to visit them, and they're still coming.
And they're still coming. They sure are. So castles showcase great art, and so do parks all over Europe. Parks are dedicated to the work by one great local artist. And I want to feature my favorite right here in Oslo, just behind the royal palace. The king recognized this amazing talent, Gustav Vigeland, about 100 years ago. And he gave Vigeland a studio, a team of workers, all the money he needed, and a huge park to decorate if he would dedicate his life's work to a beautiful park that the people of Norway could enjoy for the rest of time. That's Frogner Park. When we go here, you want to be sure to visit the little museum. I didn't know about that for 10 years after I'd been visiting. And then I went to the museum and it all came together much better. So I'll show you the museum and I'll show you the park. And I'll remind you that this is an example of a local artist employed by the local government or royalty to build and produce a beautiful collection of his life's creative work for his own people. In Oslo, Gustav Vigeland's art filling the Frogner Park.
Oslo's vast Frogner Park is a perfect place to share a moment with Norwegian families at play. Strolling here, you feel a positive spirit, both rugged and pragmatic, celebrating life. The park showcases a lifetime of work by Norway's greatest sculptor, Gustav Vigeland. At the edge of the park, the Vigeland Museum gives an insight into the work of this prolific Norwegian genius. Filled with original plaster models and well-described exhibits, this palatial studio was Vigeland's home and workplace for 20 years. Vigeland explored the yin-yang relationship of men and women, was free to produce like mad, and ran a virtual factory of art. He didn't personally carve or cast his statues. Rather, he formed them in clay or plaster to be executed by his workshop of assistants. Today, Vigeland's Park is beloved by the people of Oslo. It's both a place to relax and a place to be inspired. 6 giants hold a fountain, symbolically toiling with the burden of life, as water, the source of life, cascades steadily over them. In clumps of bronze trees, Vigeland takes us through the seasons of life. In childhood, a boy is filled with wonder. Boys climb while girls stand by quietly. A girl glides through the branches, wide-eyed and ready for life and love. The next stage shows scenes of love. Then life becomes more complicated. A lonely child, a couple plummeting downward, perhaps falling out of love, and finally, an angry man driving away babies. The fourth corner contemplates the cycle as old age sets in. Finally, as death melts into the branches of the tree of life, you know new life is ready to bloom. The centerpiece of the park, a teeming monolith of life surrounded by granite groups, continues Vigeland's cycle of life motif. Vigeland explores a lifetime of human relationships in earthbound groups. The figures seem irresistible as visitors playfully engage with the art. Then, at the center, a tangle of figures carved out of a single block of stone rocket skyward. Built of bodies, it seems to pick up speed as it spirals. Vigeland left the meaning of his monolith itself open. Like life in general, it can be interpreted many different ways.
I just love that. I'm such a sucker for that kind of art. I don't know. It's so fun to be able to share it. I do want to remind you, in so many great cities, they take the work of the great hometown boy and it fills a park. In Stockholm, Carl Milles, incredible. I was just in Reykjavik, Einar Jónsson. Amazing, right downtown. In Paris, you got Rodin. He's got at the Rodin Museum, it's a park filled with the thinker and lots more. And of course, each park has a museum that is dedicated to understanding that artistic genius. Don't miss that dimension of European travel. And you just saw my very favorite in Oslo, the park and the museum dedicated to the work of Gustav Vigeland. Hey, I want to remind you that all the details today, I thought I'm doing a little more of my teaching, so I wanted to be sure you had these words, Carl Milles, Einar Jónsson, August Rodin, and Gustav Vigeland. It's all in the chat. We've collected that along with links to anything we've talked about today, including Sebi's Bistro, who provided me with this wonderful food. It's all right there. I gotta say, I've enjoyed my Polish food at least as much as any other country's food, and I'm still working on it. I've got another show, so I got to keep some appetite for that. I've enjoyed my bison grass vodka. And they say a lot of people have it with apple juice, and they call it a Polish kiss. I call it a Polish kiss, even without the apple juice. I'll tell you that. Hey, I think that I just want to say thanks for traveling with me. And let's go back to Ben and see if we can answer some questions.
Oh, thank you so much, Rick. The variety, the beauty of European art, the history, incredible.
It is fun, Ben, to take one slice of Europe and sort of design it. I didn't know what we would do when we said quirky art or eccentric art. And then I kind of shuffled through all the stuff we've got in our archive, and I think it held together. So thank you.
It worked. It definitely worked. Before we get to some viewer questions, Rick, how about a word from our sponsor for the evening?
Well, thank you, Ben. It's always so generous of you to open me up for one more plug to the work that we're doing. And I'm in a particularly good mood right now. And it's not just because of the bison who flavored the grass, which flavored the vodka in Poland that is shared with us here in the great United States. But I'm just in a good mood because 18,000 people have signed up for a Rick Steves tour in the last 4 days. I hesitate to even mention it because we've still got piles of people coming in who were on the wait list, who were among the 20,000 or so people that signed up last year and got disappointed by COVID. And we sent them back their money and we reminded them we'll be here next year or 2 years later, and we're ready to do that. I want to impress upon people that we are very, very conservative in this. We're not doing tours this year. We probably could. Cruise ships are going this year and so on, but we are thinking it's going to be solid, it's going to be reliable, and Europe will be the Europe that we envision. I don't want to fly all the way to Amsterdam and eat in a bubble so I don't get somebody else's germs. I want to go there and get my cheeks kissed in Paris and I want to pack into the Passeggiata and the piazzas in Rome and connect with the people when they do their strolling in the evening. And I want to go to those pubs in Ireland and clink glasses with people who really believe that strangers are just friends who've yet to meet. When we all have our vaccines here in the United States and there in Europe, we can do that responsibly and reliably. Europe has had a terrible rollout, but now they're getting their act together. And the trajectory is such that we feel very confident that it will be safe and reliable and predictable to be able to travel to the Europe that we hope to see, not in 2021 necessarily, but in 2022. And that's why we've opened up our tours. We've got our hotels booked. We've got our buses and drivers standing by. We've got our guides standing by. We've kept our team together here, all 100 of us in Seattle, and we are ready to do business. And we are thankful for the people that recognize us and trust us and our passion for Europe. And I want to remind you, if you want to get in on the fun, you can go to ricksteves.com. You can go to the tour pages. There's still a lot of tours with seats open, and you can put your name even on tours that are full on the waiting list, because we always have a few extra departures in our back pocket that we can pull out depending on the demand. We have small tours, so it's really important that we have a good fill rate. We only put 25 or 28 people on a bus with 50 seats. You know, the typical tours pack 50 people onto a 50-seat bus. We couldn't do the tour we want to do with that. So we've got small tours. We need to have a good fill rate. If you're curious, go ahead, put your name on a wait list. I want to remind you, we've got 20% more tours we've yet to unveil. We've not yet told the general public about our tours. That'll happen in a week or so once we get this sorted out from the initial crush of people wanting to go. And we're very, very flexible with the deposits these days because it's a difficult time to predict. So we're giving everybody total, no questions asked, 100% refundability on deposits made until the end of this year, until December 31st. Consequently, a few people are going to be signing up now who ultimately can't go. And I would think on January 1st, there'll be a lot of seats open. So plenty of chance to get in on our tours. And if you're curious, go to the website and check it out. The other big news, if I could mention it, is I've been making TV shows for 30 years. We've never had what's called common carriage. Common carriage is when everybody runs it at the same time. You know, your favorite show in the old days, it was Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, or, you know, Sunday night, you all sit down and you watch this or that. Saturday Night Live. Well, we've got common carriage now for our new special. It's a 2-hour special. It's called Europe Awaits. And it's next Monday, 7 days from right now. And it'll be airing in every city next Monday night, June 7th. And it is a collection of destinations that I've put together that I think are good for our traveling souls, good for our wanderlust post-COVID. And I'm just so excited about the way that came together. And what I'm going to do next week here on Monday Night Travel is I've put together a collection of video clips that will give us a better understanding and a broader context on the shows that are featured in the show that's going to be airing all around the country. So it's a double header. And it's designed so you can book into the early show or the late show on this Monday Night Travel, and then you can coordinate that with what your local public television station is running next Monday night. So it's called Europe Awaits. It's destinations all over Europe that are both good for your soul and good for your wanderlust. And I hope that you can join us here on Monday Night Travel and then watch and support your local public television station that same evening. Boy, that's a pile of word from our sponsor, Ben. Let's answer some questions.
Very inspiring news, though, Rick.
It's exciting. It really is.
Our first question comes from Paul, and I think others have a similar question. You know, you've seen a lot of art over the years, Rick. Is there a piece that really surprised you or that greatly exceeded your expectations, that a piece that has really stuck with you?
Yeah. There's 100 of them, and I put them in my latest book called Europe's 100 Greatest Masterpieces. I've always enjoyed certain, I don't even know if I have my book here, but it's a coffee table called 100 Masterpieces. And if I think through what's in there that I really like, there's so much great architecture. I mean, you think of architecture that just fits in with the age and it just inspires. You think of sculpture, like we were just with Gustav Vigeland. You think of paintings that take you back in time. The Isenheim altarpiece by Grunewald in Colmar just blows you away. That's a beautiful piece of art. Michelangelo's Sistine ceiling, and then later he did The Last Judgment. That's an amazing thing. Velasquez Las Meninas. It's, you can walk right into it in the Prado. They actually put stanchions around it so people, to stay away from the painting. I think it's almost to keep it from walking into it, because you look at it and you feel like you'd walk right into that thing. Picasso's Guernica inspired by the Hitler's Luftwaffe bombing a little town in Catalunya to silence them as they rose up against Franco and fascism in Spain. That's just a power. It's the national piece of art of Europe. It understandably so. It's such a powerful piece of art. There's a big mural of it, a giant mural of Picasso's Guernica in the United Nations Hall where everybody meets. And before the United States wanted to talk the United States, the United Nations into following us into the war in Iraq, back against Saddam Hussein, we had that mural, Picasso's Guernica, taken down because Guernica talks about the reality of war, what we call collateral damage, innocent people who die because of needless wars. Powerful, powerful art. I could just, there's not one piece of art that you just love the most. It's just the more you bring to the art, the more you appreciate it. If you understand what the context was, who paid for it and why, what was going on, then it turns you on. And every age, art can turn you on if you bring something to it. It behooves you to do your studying before your trip.
And, Rick, David, one of our viewers, noted that Europe seems to provide a lot of support for art, and certainly it's well appreciated in society. We've seen so many great examples of that here today. Do you think that art in the United States is appreciated to the same degree? And do you have any thoughts on ways we can support art here in the States?
If I may get political, in the last generation, the emphasis in education in our country, I believe, has the funding for it, the enthusiasm for it, has been taking away from liberal arts and creative thinking and put into science and engineering and math so that we can make more money. And we're a society that knows how to make money, but it's a society that doesn't know how to think critically as an electorate, as a populace. Europe understands you need to invest in your people if you're going to have a strong fabric for your democracy. They've learned that the hard way because of what happened, back in the Hitler time. In the United States, we're going to learn that coming up. If you shake your head and you wonder, how can 40% of America think this way? It's because you are an educated elite. And you are an educated elite only because in our society, there's so many people that have been denied a good liberal arts education, an ability to think critically because of priorities coming from top down to make us dumbed down, more compliant, and more productive as a workforce. I just think it is so short-term. I think it's a tragedy, and it threatens our precious democracy. So that is a little rant about the importance of liberal art education. And I think Europeans have an advantage because their societies invest in people in a way that is self-respecting and giving people the encouragement to think critically and be a contributing part of their community, instead of looking at educated people as elites that are just getting in the way of progress. That's one way I'm inspired by Europe. And that's one reason when I come home, I'm inspired to teach what I learned when I was on the road. This is a real important issue. And I'm so thankful there's public television. It's the one spot on the dial that celebrates thoughtfulness, that we can make programming that assumes an attention span, that respects people's intelligence, and makes programming driven not by a passion for keeping advertisers happy, but by a passion for just inspiring people to reach out and embrace the world in all its beautiful diversity. Man, oh man, this bison grass vodka is it's my Polish kiss. Let's talk on.
All right, Rick, next question comes from Sue, and it's a very thoughtful question. Looking ahead to 2022, you talked earlier on previous Monday Night Travels past about your plans to take a Best of Europe tour led by Andy.
Yeah.
Any news, any update on that occurring now that we've released 2022 tours?
Yeah, just today I was looking at the list of tours. They're all sold out. That tour that I wanted to do the big tour, the big 21 days Best of Europe tour. Of course, we can add a few more. And I would love to, people ask me, what would you like to do when we can travel again? The biggest disappointment in the last year was I had to cancel the trip. It was my dream come true. My daughter, Jackie, is getting married to Damien, and Damien's family is a wonderful family from all over the United States, and many of them have never traveled. And I just want to get to know the in-laws, and I want to get them introduced to Europe. And I thought, well, Andy's a great guide, my son. Andy can be the guide. I'm going to go on a tour doing something I've never done before on a tour, just relax and have fun with friends. And we're going to do the best of Europe with Jackie and her new in-laws and a few of my relatives, my extended relatives that have yet to get to Europe. It's going to be great. Of course, we had to cancel it. It was going to be last June. Had to cancel because of COVID, but I'd love to resurrect that. And I'm thinking maybe even 2021, but if I can pull that off, yes, I want to do that for sure.
Oh, that'll just be fantastic.
If I was ever going to do something extravagant because I've got the money, it would be to take my 25 favorite loved ones to Europe on that Best of Europe tour with my son being the guide.
That'll just be wonderful, right?
Yeah.
You know, we've seen so many museums here in this presentation. Any thoughts on the survival of museums through the pandemic? Do you think most of them will live on?
You know, I've got a friend who runs a beautiful museum down in Arkansas, and it's funded by the Walton family, and he's got plenty of money he's got job security, and that museum's going to be just fine because it's a passion of the Waltons down in Arkansas. But he told me that of all the museums that have shut down here in the United States, many will not reopen after COVID. And it's a sad thing, because a lot of people think the museum is like the Smithsonian Institute. There's a lot of museums that are the passion of local people, just local caring citizens that love their heritage, their town, their story. And of course, we've got friends in Europe that run museums like that. Beautiful museums, passionate couples that it's just their labor of love. And it's hard to keep it together when you got no revenue. It's been a struggle for us, but thankfully we've got the financial wherewithal to get through this and keep our staff intact. You know, there's you and me and 98 others, Ben, at Rick Steves Europe, and we've kept our team together. But other people can hardly make their rent payments from month to month if they're a little museum. And if you get a whole year without people going there, it's tough. I think in Europe, my friends, and I've been getting a lot of communications from my friends in Europe in museums, hotels, restaurants, tour guides, and so on. And the governments have been helping out over there, just like here. Local people are traveling a fair amount, patronizing what they care about in their own community to keep them alive. And that is going to let them eke through until tourism kicks into gear and the international travelers come and they can start being vital again. But that is a big issue. And we'll go back to Europe and find that a lot of our favorite little restaurants, a lot of our favorite museums will no longer be open.
Well, we've almost made it through. I hope most can survive a little longer. Mm-hmm. Time for just one last question, Rick. Do you draw or paint? How do you express your artistic self?
Well, I love art, but I'm not much of an artist. I'm pretty good on the keyboard. That's my art. But I did, in fact, hang on, I got to show you something here. I've got this. This is kind of silly, but a lot of people have talked about me and Fred Rogers and Bob Ross in the same sentence because we love public television so much. This is my Bob Ross painting. I did this, and I've never picked up a paintbrush. And I was there with the Bob Ross folks, and they coached me. It took me just under an hour. I was at a public television programmers convention, and I think that's dang good, you know? And it's just the point. It's kind of like painting by numbers almost if you have a good coach. But that's that Bob Ross fun with art. So that's my only painting, and I hang that up because I enjoyed it. I'd love to fiddle around with that more, but I sure enjoy seeing the art in Europe. I enjoy seeing it anyways, and I enjoy seeing it even more when I'm with a good guide. And tonight we've shared a lot of great art with a lot of good guides that bring it to life. Hey, I just want to thank everybody for giving me the excuse to take a little time and enjoy the quirky art of Europe and share it with all of you. Next Monday, a week from tonight, we've got Europe Awaits. What a great name. What a timely TV special. It's airing all over the country on TV live at about the same time, Monday night. It's Common Carriage, a 2-hour special. Rick Steves, Europe Awaits on public television. And here on Monday Night Travel, we've put together a show that complements that show. So make it a double header. We're celebrating travel. We're going to keep on traveling. We're going to get out of this pandemic. We're getting our vaccines. We're keeping our travel dreams alive. And we at Rick Steves Europe want to thank you for joining us and being our travel partners. So thanks again for being here, and I hope to see you next week, and happy travels.